You are really going to love this birth story episode with Rachel. Welcome to the All About Pregnancy and Birth podcast. I'm Dr. Nicole Calloway Rankins, a board-certified OBGYN who's been in practice for nearly 15 years. I've had the privilege of helping over 1,000 babies into this world, and I'm here to help you be calm, confident, and empowered to have a beautiful pregnancy and birth. Quick note, this podcast is for educational purposes only and is not a substitute for medical advice. Check out the full disclaimer at drnicolerankins.com/disclaimer. Now let's get to it. Hey there. Before we dive into the episode, the Birth with Power Pathway launches in May. And if you're getting ready for your hospital birth, you don't want to miss it. It's the updated version of my online birth course designed to get you calm, confident, and empowered. Hop on my email list now at drnicolerankins.com/email to be the first to know when it's live. Hello there. Welcome to another episode of the podcast. This is episode number 222. Whether this is your first time tuning in or you are a return listener, I'm grateful that you're spending some of your time with me today. In today's episode, we have Rachel. Rachel is mom to Bennett and baby Dean, as well as their dog Scout. The best thing that happened to Rachel was becoming a mother. She's in the field of education. She loves the work that she does, and her husband, Bobby, is a physician. He is in his third year of his internal medicine residency, so you know they stay super busy. Now, in this episode, you are going to hear how Rachel chose to have an induction. You're going to learn why she did that in the episode. And from the start of her induction to the moment she gave birth was, listen to this, 4.5 hours total, including labor and pushing. And it was an unmedicated birth. You're going to hear all of the details about how that unfolded in the episode. And there are just so many other important topics and things that she touches upon in her story. I can't even mention them all. So you are going to find this episode really, really informative and enjoyable. Now, before we get into the episode, are you part of my free Facebook group? It's called All About Pregnancy and Birth, the Inner Circle Community. And it's a great place to connect with other people who are trying to get pregnant, who are postpartum. You can ask your questions, get feedback, learn from other people's experiences. Community is so important during your pregnancy and your postpartum journey, and an online community can really help step in and fill some of those community gaps when it can be hard to find folks around you. So check it out. It's called All About Pregnancy and Birth, Inner Circle Community. Search for it on Facebook. Just search for it by my name and it should pop right up. All right, let's get into the episode with Rachel. Thank you so much, Rachel, for agreeing to come onto the podcast. I'm really excited to hear your story.
Yeah, thank you so much for allowing me to come.
Yeah, so why don't we start off by having you tell us a bit about yourself and your family?
Yeah, I'm Rachel. I am married for the last 10 years, and I have 2 babies. One that we're going to talk about her birth story today. She's 2 years and 8 months. And then I have a little 2-month-old. So just right out the gates here.
Okay. Yes. I did not realize. See, sometimes it's some time between when people submit their stories and then when I go approve a bunch of them. So yeah. I didn't realize you had another baby since then.
Yeah.
So congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah. I actually, I'm a really kind of shy person, so I never thought I would share my birth story. Mm-hmm. And then when I was listening back to all of your podcasts again with this one, right, I started thinking, man, I wish I would have heard some of these things with my first. Right. And so that made me submit 2 years after I had her.
I love it. Yeah. I love it. I love it. And I guarantee you someone's going to find it helpful.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah. So why don't you start off by telling us, we always have to talk about the pregnancy and prenatal care to understand what happens with the birth. And for you, I thought it was really interesting because you said that you did a preconception consult appointment. So what made you do that?
Yeah, I'm definitely a type A person. I'm just someone who likes to prepare, and I'm a teacher, so I think sometimes that comes with the personality. And so I was listening to your podcast before I got pregnant, and either you or someone that you were interviewing talked about a preconception appointment. And I thought that was really interesting because the provider that I was currently seeing, he was awesome, but I just saw him once a year, and I knew I didn't want him for my pregnancy.
Gotcha.
And so I started kind of looking around, and I heard of someone, and so I thought, well, I'll try out the preconception appointment. And so I went, and immediately, just what you talk about so much, I just had an incredible feeling of just connection. I felt heard. I felt respected.
Nice.
And, just her sitting and looking me in the eye and talking to me instead of like at the computer taking notes. Just little things like that I'd never had experienced. And I thought, wow, this really feels personal.
Right.
And so I was so happy that I was able to go do that. And the other thing that was really incredible is that I had been on this medication called spironolactone. I'm not sure if I'm saying it right.
Yeah, spironolactone, yeah.
Okay. I had been on that medication because I'd get cystic acne pretty bad right here. And so I'd been on it for years. And I'm sure when I first got on it, they told me to not get pregnant, but that had been like 8 years ago.
Sure.
And so my provider told me that medication blocks the male hormone. And if I have a male, it could make the baby's genitals not form correctly.
Yep.
And so I just was so, so grateful that I went to that preconception appointment and that you talked about it on your podcast, because I would have gotten pregnant and waited, the weeks and weeks and weeks to go in while everything's developing. And so that was something that I was really grateful for. And I hope, other women will feel, that they can and should have a preconception appointment.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Wow. That's a big deal because it could have been a lot different.
Yes. Yeah. And the other thing is I would get cysts on my ovaries quite frequently. Would have to go get them ultrasound. And anyways, they said it could interfere with getting pregnant and things like that. And so she actually told me, I think she could tell that I was like type A.
Right.
And so she told me to buy these ovulation test strips and just start taking them and tracking my ovulation and see kind of where I was at.
Right.
And then she said, you'll want to have intercourse a day before and the day of your ovulation. And I don't know if my education in health wasn't great, but I think probably in America our health education.
It sucks. Yeah.
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 And I didn't even know that. I didn't even know when I was supposed to, if I was trying to get pregnant. I had no idea. All I knew is that you shouldn't get pregnant when you're a teenager. I feel like that's what they focus on.
Right.
Abstinence.
Exactly.
And so I just recommend for anyone that's a planner or is worried about getting pregnant or might get stressed by it, or anyone who just wants to be informed of when do you even ovulate? Like, what does that look like? Those ovulation test strips were so easy, and it was so cool for me to be like, oh my gosh, I'm ovulating. Like, this is really cool.
Right.
And I did get pregnant the very first month, and I know it's because I knew when I ovulated.
Yeah, exactly. I love it. So then you got pregnant. I assume you went back to that same person for prenatal care.
Yes.
So what was your pregnancy and prenatal care like?
Yeah, she was amazing. I live in New Mexico now, but at the time I lived in Oregon, and it was a really small town, only 20,000 people.
Oh, wow.
And so I've since given birth at a large hospital system, but there, it was so fun because I knew the front receptionist, Cheryl, and I were like on personal terms. And she's like, how have you been feeling? And so that care was so fun to have for your first. Just everyone saying hi, and you knew everyone, and it was really great.
Right.
It was during COVID, so that was a little bit threw some wrenches in it, but everyone was just really, really awesome. And so I loved that. I loved the size of that practice, and it was really personal.
Okay.
And the hospital I was giving birth at was a teaching hospital.
Okay.
And so my provider always had a med student with her. But I thought she did just such a great job incorporating them as the team instead of like, this is a med student, they're going to sit in the corner. Are you comfortable?
Right.
She just did a really great job to let them like learn along with me.
Right.
And that was really fun. So I appreciated that.
Nice. Now, was it just her, or did she have, like, was it a bigger, like, how many people were in the doctors were in the practice?
There was only about four other OBs. It was really, really small.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And did you see the others, or did you just see your doctor?
No, I only saw my doctor, which I think, especially during COVID and everything, it was nice to just be consistent and develop that relationship. And I actually got to have her in my labor, so it ended up being great, but I can understand why it would be nice to get to know everyone just in case.
Got it. And then did you have any issues or problems during your pregnancy at all?
I will say I had two things that I wanted to mention. One was I didn't realize how awful the first trimester you feel.
Yeah.
Everyone says it's morning sickness. It's like 24/7.
Yeah, we should have abandoned that term because it's so like not true.
I know. I'm like, who coined this?
Yes.
A man? But the only thing I could keep down was carbs. And I just ate carbs.
Okay.
And so I gained 13 pounds the first trimester.
Okay.
And I was terrified because I know I know what you're not supposed to gain. And I was just worried. And my OB was amazing. She was like, you're totally fine. She's like, that's what average, everyone's different. Everyone's body is different. And so I would just say that too. She like really calmed me down when I was worried about, gaining too much. And I ended up only gaining 29 the whole pregnancy. And so she just made me feel like everybody's different and maybe your body needs more in the beginning. And, you're in survival mode with this first trimester.
Right.
So anyways, another testament to like a provider that, helps you feel comfortable.
100%.
Yeah.
And then I know you also had a fall.
Yeah. What
happened with that?
Yeah, we went to the Oregon coast, my husband and I, to just walk along the coastline, and I was 7 months pregnant, and he was actually getting the stuff from the car, and I was just walking down the trail, and I slipped and fell on my elbow and my hip. Okay. And, being pregnant, that is so terrifying. Sure. And I remember like standing up and feeling really stressed, and I did something weird. Instead of going up and telling my husband, I just kind of went down to the beach and just like had a moment to just kind of like calm myself. And luckily everything worked out, but I kind of wish I would have been like, we need to go to the hospital. But I think I was just so terrified. Sure. I couldn't even say it. So once he came down, I told him, and I just felt a lot of shame and guilt that happened. Yeah, it was like I just felt like I messed up, and I'm supposed to protect this baby. And so we went to the hospital. We called. They told us to come in. Okay. And they checked, and then we were in there for about 3 hours, and everything was fine. And same thing when I went to my OB, she said, it looks like everything was fine. I'm sorry that happened. And I kind of started crying. I'm like, I just feel so bad. And like your reaction, she's like, you were doing a normal thing. Yeah. You weren't bungee jumping. You weren't doing something crazy.
Right.
And that made me feel better. Like, yeah, I was just walking on the beach and I fell. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, but that was definitely a scary, scary moment, but it ended up, we just had to be checked out for that day.
Okay, good, yeah. Good. Anything else during your pregnancy other than the first, I shouldn't say the normal, but it is normal. The first trimester is all, it's unfortunately normal. That between the nausea and the fatigue is also something like, it's indescribable, how tired you can be. Was there anything else that happened, or was it pretty straightforward?
It was really straightforward. I think something that I didn't expect too is that I did not love being pregnant ever. And I didn't. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if women don't talk about it. I didn't feel connected to the baby. My babies are like my total world now. And I felt that love when I saw them, but I wanted to keep them safe, and I wanted to eat right and do what I needed to, but I never felt that like love or connection while pregnant. Yeah. And I felt kind of bad. Like, I'm like, am I not going to love this baby? Am I not like maternal? What's going on? Right. And so I just want everyone to hear that. And I love my babies now, so it's okay if you're not connected.
Thank you so much for saying that. I think it's something that we don't talk enough about. I personally I just didn't enjoy being pregnant. I liked the kicking. I liked the feeling the movements and things, but otherwise it was like, a means to an end. So thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, that's well said. It is a wonderful means to an end.
Yes. Let's talk about something most pregnant women aren't getting enough of: omega-3 DHA. The recommendation is over 200 milligrams a day, but less than 5% of pregnant women in the U.S. meet that. That's one of the reasons I love Ritual's Essential Prenatal. It has 350 milligrams of vegan DHA plus other key nutrients like methylated folate and choline to support baby's neural tube development. As an OBGYN, I appreciate that Ritual goes beyond the basics. The formula is science-backed, third-party tested for heavy metals and microbes, and every ingredient is traceable. And the delayed release design, it's gentle on the stomach, something that really matters, especially if there's trouble with nausea during pregnancy. You deserve to know exactly what you're putting into your body, especially when it comes to prenatal multivitamins. And with Ritual's dedication to traceable science and sourcing, you always will. See for yourself with 25% off your first month at ritual.com/Dr. Nicole. Start Ritual or add Essential Prenatal to your subscription today. That's ritual.com/Dr. Nicole for 25% off your first month. Alrighty. So what did you do to prepare for your birth?
Well, your podcast was truly a life-changing. I knew so little about pregnancy, about my body. And so I listened to, I started in 2019. Okay. And so I started early.
You went all the way back to the very beginning. Yes.
Yeah. And I just could not wait for every episode. So I listened to every episode. I did dabble with the birth hour and evidence-based birth, but I liked the mix of the birth stories and also the experts coming on. That just kind of flowed well with where I was at. So I love that. I read the Mayo Clinic pregnancy book. It's week by week. And I also got the What to Expect book. And that was fun to just see what your baby's doing each week.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I took your Birth Wishes course, which I really, really enjoyed because I just didn't even know how to go about that or how to say it. And I'm sure even now I did it again with this child, but it's just really nice to go to a provider in a way that isn't confrontational, or it just sets it up nicely for us to be able to have a nice conversation about it. Yeah. And then the other plug I'll do for the Birth Wishes course is that I knew I wanted to do, skin to skin, and I knew I wanted to do delayed core count, those main things. But something that really stuck out is, instead of asking, do you do skin to skin? Do you do, to ask, what does that look like? What does skin to skin look like? And that was kind of eye-opening to me, because when I asked, yes, we do it, I'm like, well, what does it look like? And so I was really able to dive right in and say, this is what I want it to look like for me. Right. And I never would have done that. I would have just done a checkbox oh, good, they do everything that I want. Right. So. Right.
Man, Rachel, you're making me feel good over
you
here.
You should feel good. Yeah, you should feel good, Dr. Rankin, truly. Yeah, no, that I cannot stress enough. That was a really, really good, you can print one off the internet, but there's so much to it, and language that is in the medical field, or not loopholes, but things in the medical field that you just don't know if you're not in it. Yeah. So I loved that.
Well, good. I'm glad. So what are some things that you wanted for your birth?
Yeah, I wanted the golden hour, the skin to skin, the delayed cord clamping. I actually wanted unmedicated. Okay. For a few reasons. One is I hate needles. Okay. So the thought of an epidural was terrifying to me. Okay. And
that's actually more common than people think, that they just can't, the thought of it is just,
Yeah, the thought of a needle going in your back was just really kind of scary. Right. And then also I didn't know if I take any pain medication, I'm not allergic, but I just immediately start vomiting. Okay. Any pain medication at all. Okay. I can sometimes get away with one Tylenol with lots of food, but anything strong, it makes me sick. Okay. So I didn't want to be in labor and throwing up the whole time.
That makes sense.
So I wanted that. And then I did take your birth class, and I learned how the different pain management pieces affect the baby. And so I knew I definitely did not, I just personally didn't want to have medication in my baby.
Sure.
And so I didn't want to have pain meds. And then I knew the epidural could cross a little bit into the placenta from your birth course. And so same thing, I learned so much from that. And so based on that course and everything you talked about it, I wanted to try unmedicated, but I wasn't completely opposed to getting an epidural if I needed it.
Gotcha. Yeah. And then was there anything that you were like scared of or worried about when thinking about birth?
Well, yeah, I think birth can be really scary. I was scared. And so taking your course really calmed my nerves down, because to me, knowledge is power. And so I think it was scary because I'd never seen birth. You don't even really learn about birth in life. Like, when do you learn about that?
Right.
And so many of my fears beyond like the needles was completely squashed once I was actually educated on everything about it. So I did, feel empowered and felt like a lot of my fears went down.
Awesome. I love it.
And then obviously it was COVID. So,
that added a whole nother level of, of just, I really think, in looking back, I certainly underestimated like the impact I think COVID had on people who were pregnant during that time, because it was very isolating and it was also really scary. You just didn't know what was going to happen. Yeah. So, I mean, I'm glad we're out of those times, but my heart goes out to everyone who was pregnant. Like, to add that extra level of things on top of it was a lot for people. And you were going to appointments by yourself. Like, you didn't have the same support system and things. Yeah.
And it's at the point where you didn't know how it was spread. So you're like wiping down all your groceries, you know, and it's we weren't even wearing masks because we were saving them for the medical, so it was a crazy time.
Absolutely.
And the last thing that I wanted for my birth, which is very different than what I hear on hardly any podcasts, is I actually wanted an induction.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, it's definitely different than what I heard and what I thought.
Yeah.
But my husband was a fourth-year medical student. And so, as you know, but during fourth year, you have to travel to do basically
sort of audition and try to figure out where you want to go.
Yeah. So we tried to plan his auditions and we tried to plan the pregnancy, but so much is out of your control.
Yes.
So he was gone the month before I had the baby, and he was gone the month after I had the baby.
Okay.
And his medical school allowed 2 days of paternity leave. And so...
I'm sorry. Did you say 2 days?
2 days. That's all. It's just... I know. We've got to get... We've got to get to it.
I'm mortified. Like, as a fourth-year student, like, by that point, you're kind of at the end. Like, you're at the end. You're not even, like... 2 days.
Yes, 2 days.
That's so embarrassing that we as medical professionals can fix our mouths to say that to someone. You can have 2 days with your new baby.
Yeah, I'm learning in the medical field, they don't follow hardly anything that they preach.
These are facts. Yes.
Yeah, they're working like 90 hours a week.
Yes,
like,
all kinds of things. My mind. Yeah. Okay. So you had 2 days. So you're like, we have to try and make it so he's here, basically.
Yeah. I really wanted him here. I could only have one person with COVID to go in with me. And so, and my parents lived out of town. My mom was flying in, but we also were trying to get people to come the month that he was gone to help me.
Sure.
And with COVID, we were trying not to overlap. Anyways, it was just, it was so tricky.
Right.
So number one, I wanted him there and he wanted to be there.
Yeah. I mean, it's the birth of your first child. Yes.
Yeah. And then number two, I felt so out of control with him being gone and out of control with COVID and just a lot of like what I would want my birth wishes to be just kind of blown out.
Sure.
So we decided that if my body looked ready at like 38, then we would book the induction.
Okay.
And I wrote down at my 39-week 2-day appointment, I was dilated to a 4.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So you were starting from a great spot.
Yeah. And I was 70% effaced at a -2, and I was soft.
Okay.
So
yeah, you were in a good shape. Very favorable.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So we felt like, okay, this induction is going to, and if I wasn't there, we weren't going to do it. Okay. But my body felt like it was there.
Sure. Okay. Did you do anything to try to get your body ready, or were you just going with the flow?
No, of course I was doing everything. Yeah. I didn't do the oil thing or, but yeah, like my personality, I was curb walking like 4 miles a day. Okay. Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Tried it all.
Right. So then how did the induction go?
So since I was so far along, I didn't have to go the night before. Mm-hmm. So we were able to go in the morning because I didn't need the Foley bulb or anything like that.
Right.
So we got there in the morning around 6 and they checked us in and got us going. In my birth plan, I had talked to my doctor that I wanted to break my water before trying Pitocin.
Okay.
Less medication. I don't know. I just wanted to try that first.
It's perfectly reasonable. Yeah.
So she said since I was far enough along, she was happy to try it. Mm-hmm. When I got in there, the nurses were just about to change. So the night nurses, they started to try to do the Pitocin, and I shared with them my plan. And they were like, well, this is like policy. This is what we do. So my husband and I were kind of like, is this something we want to fight and die on? Or the doctor's coming in 20 minutes. Do we just let him put it in, and then in 20 minutes the doctor comes in? Okay. So we just thought, that's fine. The nurses are going to change. She's coming in 20 minutes. Mm-hmm. So they got it set up, and 7 minutes later the doctor came in and turned it off. So we kind of waited to see if we wanted to fight that battle. So the doctor came in and she broke my water at 8:30 and said, I'll be back at 12. And if you haven't dilated or progressed, then we'll have a conversation about Pitocin.
Okay.
And at that time, my new nurse came in and she was like, I heard you're doing unmedicated. Like, we've got this. Mm-hmm. And she really sat down and talked to me how do you handle pain? How do you want me to approach it? How do you want me to help you? And
nice.
That was awesome. And I just wanted to put a little plug there, which you say all the time. But really, if you don't hit it off with your nurse, then it's okay to switch. And I felt such a difference from the night nurse, which I'm sure they were just exhausted and their shift was ending and they weren't going to be with me. But I felt such a change from them to her. I was like, wow, that could change your whole birthing experience. Yeah. So I know you say it and everyone does, but just feel brave to change that if you need to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so she broke my water at 8:30 a.m. Around 9, I started feeling strong contractions in my back, and only in my back. So the nurse said, let's lay over the ball just in case your baby's sunny side up. You might be having back labor. Mm-hmm. So they had me lay on the ball. In my birth plan was to try the nitrous oxide. Mm-hmm. So I was excited to try that. So she put the nitrous oxide on me. I had no idea if I was feeling and it was helping me or not. But what I did is that it really helped me focus on my breathing.
Gotcha.
And that was, you talk about breathing in your birth class and the different breaths you should take. Mm-hmm. And so that having that on there made me focus on it more, which was really helpful.
Gotcha.
I later found out that it was unplugged. So I actually didn't try nitrous oxide.
You were just breathing regular air.
I was just breathing regular air.
Okay.
Yeah. I had no idea. I'm like, man, I would be in so much pain if this wasn't working.
Right. That is amazing to me. There's something, we've said it, there's something to the mental. You never know what mental things will get you in the right zone.
Yeah, and they told me when I was going to deliver, they're like, oh my gosh, this has been unplugged the whole time. And when I was breathing it, I thought, oh my goodness, I would be dead if I didn't have this nitrous oxide. I can't imagine it worse.
Right.
But I don't know. I guess if you want to do unmedicated, you could try something to help because it really did help.
Right.
So who knows?
Oh, so contractions just kept picking up when they're on?
Yeah, so at 9 is when she put me on the ball and got me the nitrous oxide. Mm-hmm. And I had no idea if it had been 20 minutes or 2 days or 2 weeks. I mean, I was out of body. I'd never had a break. I never had a moment where I was like, oh, there's another contraction coming. Right. I was literally from 9 on just in so much pain.
Oh.
And the nurse came in at 10 and was like, do you want to try a bath? stuff? And all I could say was no. And she said, I know you didn't want me to ask you, but I can tell you're in a lot of pain. Do you want me to check you? And I was like, please.
Right.
And she checked me and she's like, so it's 10 a.m. So she broke my water 8:30. At 10 a.m. she said, you're at a 9. And so it was kind of like, oh, thank heavens, because I'm in so much pain.
Right.
So I don't know why, but my body, my mom, my grandma, all of them barely made it to the hospital. So I think
I was going to ask that. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. My mom kept on saying you have to get induced. You have to get there. We have fast babies. But I'm like, Mom, not on the first. Everyone's baby takes a long time.
Right. Right. And then there you go, 2 hours, not even 2 hours later, and you're 9.
Moms are always right. That's the moral of the story. Listen to your mothers.
Yeah.
So my mom was right.
She was right.
I was, at that point, I was relieved because I wasn't, I think the breath work, and like I said, that really helped, but I just didn't realize there was no break in between.
Sure. So did that help you to say, okay, I can,
yes.
Okay.
Yes. It was totally I've got this, and I was able to refocus on my breathing. And so she ran out to call the doctor. The doctor was down the street in clinic, because they kind of do both at a small place. But it was only a 2-minute drive. At that time, I transitioned from a 9 to a 10 and threw up. And my poor husband, I remember, I barely lifted my head. I mean, it's in my hair. You're just and you're so humbled by this experience. And you're just wow, could this get worse? And it does. Because you're pushing. But my husband was cleaning it up, and he started gagging and threw up. He's don't tell that part of the story, Rachel. I'm telling the part.
Oh, we're going to tell it. We're going to tell it. Yes.
So he's cleaning it up, and all of a sudden he's puking. I'm just laying there oh my gosh.
Right.
But all of a sudden, I mean, that fetal ejection that you hear people talk about.
It was
it hit. And I was I'm pushing. And he goes out there and he's she needs to push. I'm no, I'm pushing.
Right. Not just need to push. I am pushing.
Yeah. And I was scared because it went so fast. I thought, is this baby coming out? I mean, I felt the fetal ejection come.
Right.
And, so they all came in, and my doctor was there, and everyone came in, and it did not happen fast. I pushed for 2 hours, but I have to say, my doctor was there the whole time, massaging my perineum and doing everything, and which was really helpful. But I would lay down and I would have a break. So that's the first time where I wouldn't feel anything, and then the push, I'd okay, I'm pushing. And they just let me push for 2 hours whenever I felt it and how I wanted to push.
Okay.
And it was really nice. Everyone cheered me on. In the beginning of the 2 hours, I thought, oh, this baby's coming, because they were so excited every time I pushed.
Right.
And then by the end, I'm you guys are just lying. This baby is not ever coming out, because everything was excited for 2 hours. So, and then one last thing I just wanted to say before we have the baby come is just going back to how you talk so much, in the birth course, but also in your podcast about being able to trust your doctor. And I remember you saying to ask your doctor what their statistics is on C-sections. And that was really, really scary for me to ask. I don't know why. I was just so nervous to put someone on the spot like that.
Right.
And I'm so glad I did. I can't remember, but it was very low. And I remember thinking when I was pushing for 2 hours, had my doctor said, we need to do a C-section, it's been 2 hours, I would have 100% been you're right. I am exhausted. I have pushed. You're 100% right. Of course we need a C-section.
Gotcha.
And even my husband, he delivered 15 babies on his 3rd-year rotation. He also was, when I told him that afterwards, he's yeah, I thought the same thing. when are we headed to C-section? This is. And my doctor was just so calm and so patient. We never even got to that point. It was just, we're just pushing. So I think unless you have a doula, which I couldn't have in COVID, and some people can't afford. Right. You really, really need to ask that question of your provider.
Yeah, I like that. And to just so you know, 2 hours is not a long. I mean, it's pretty typical for a first baby. So it's not I'm glad that your doctor was patient with the process, because some folks wouldn't have been.
Yeah.
And it's also hard because we can see the progress that you can't see necessarily. So that's why we get excited and we're like, yes. And it's not uncommon for moms to be like, y'all are some lying such and suches, because we've been doing this. But it's like slow and steady wins the race.
Yeah, it's so true. It is. And, it's funny, talking about not being connected to the baby yet. I remember, like, you taught us, to think about your happy thoughts and think about, like, visualizing that. And I remember just, like, thinking, I just have to get home to my dog. Like, I just have. And now it's like, oh my gosh, I was thinking about my dog, like my love for my baby. But that got me through. So really do kind of think of those things that can help you get through.
Yeah, absolutely. So then you pushed for 2 hours, and then what happened?
Yeah, my husband had planned on catching the baby.
And your OB was okay with that?
My OB was excited and okay with it. And there was a third-year med student there, and she's like, no, go ahead.
Right.
But then when it started to come, I mean, my husband had caught 15 babies. Right. And then when it's your baby, he got nervous. And he's like, no. Like, so she came and helped. And the cord was wrapped around the baby's neck, but she just really took it off fast. And they put the baby straight to my chest. And, just you can't even explain that. It is that moment is so surreal. It just blew my mind that love could even feel that way. Right. Let alone that quickly.
Yeah. And then did you have any tears or anything, or have to get stitches?
I only tore my labia. So I had to tore my labia, and I did need stitches. And I was a little bit surprised. You're holding your baby and loving it and, like, pushing out the placenta. I'm like, oh, that still hurts. Yeah. And then the shot for the, but you're so happy. But that was something that I thought, like, oh, I forgot that the placenta could still be some contractions.
There is a lot. There is kind of a lot happening. It's like, oh, wait, I have the baby. But like you said, the placenta's coming. And then the doctor's, like, numbing me up. And so it is a lot kind of happening right away. Yeah.
So it was really nice. We got the golden hour. And since it was COVID, we didn't have anyone be able to come in and take pictures. And one of the nurses was so sweet. Since it was a small hospital, there was lots of nurses in there. And one just took my phone and took pictures and was like, you can erase them, you can, and it was so lovely to look back on those. So,
that's nice.
That was really nice.
That's nice. So then what was the postpartum period like for you? Because I know that wasn't necessarily easy.
Yeah, I had a few things that I wanted to bring up postpartum, and the biggest one I'll say for last. But, so my husband left 2 days after, and my mom.
That is still so crazy. Yeah. I mean, I'm glad your mom was able to come, but he must have felt awful to have to leave 2 days after his first child was born.
Yeah. And I think the connection and the time that you get with the baby, he did drive home and, like, would be home because he was close enough, but it was too far. So he'd come home, like, once a week and, get home at, like, 3 a.m. and then spend the one day with the baby, because he does get 1 day off a week, and then, drive back. And that was a bummer for, like, our little, our little family. But then after that, he was done. We had stacked his auditions. Okay. So it was a hard month, and then he was done for, like, 5 months. So that was lovely.
Good. Yeah.
But I remember my mom walking in and just so much relief to have your mom who knows and understands, and just, there's things like, even if you've never taken care of a newborn, I'm like, oh my gosh, thank heavens my mom's here, like bathing and being careful with the umbilical cord.
Right. So, now, was this her first grandbaby, or?
No, she'd had some. So she
came in and she was like, I am ready.
She was so ready. Yeah. So, and I think, this is discussed, and I think everyone's different, but for me, like, to have someone to make meals, and to have someone do laundry, and to have someone, I know some people think, oh, I just, want us. But even to have someone do that part, and your husband to just connect with the baby, and you just take care of yourself. I had no idea. I like grew up on a farm. I'm a farm girl. I'm tough. I can push through anything. Right. And you really can't push through this, because you do more harm to your body. You really do have to take care of yourself, or else you'll cause more problems. Yeah. So I just cannot say enough having some type of help, no matter what it is, a meal service or a family or a friend, someone to help.
Yeah. Yeah. Other cultures seem to get that, in some cultures, women just like have help. They're constantly waited on for, a month after birth. Yeah. So I agree. Like help is just so important.
Yeah, no matter how tough you think you are. Yeah, I think this plays into, so I did have hemorrhoids after having the baby, but I remember being like, man, my bottom hurts worse than like my vagina. Like I'm in pain there. Right. And when I pushed, I'm like, oh my gosh, what is happening? But I think I did a little bit too much before my mom came, and I got new hemorrhoids, and I was in just excruciating pain.
They can be very painful.
I had no idea. And finally, and the other problem is if you breastfeed, you're literally sitting on the hemorrhoids. Like before my milk came in, my baby nursed for like 9 hours. Just, you're just like back and forth, and you're trying to get the milk in. Right. And so my mom's like, just call your doctor and go check it out. Right. So I went in, and I always have low blood pressure. Like they're always like, do we put you on medication? Do you not? Because my blood pressure is low even when I was pregnant. And I went in, and my blood pressure was 140/76, which was much higher than what it normally is. And I think it was just the pain. I was I was in so much pain. So she checked me, and she found out that one of the hemorrhoids, the one that was causing most pain, had like gone out so far it attached my perineum, and where it attached the perineum for some reason was causing me so much pain. Right. So she got me some lidocaine cream, and like to put it on and touch it, I was like in tears, but then it gave me some relief. Okay. And it gave me enough relief to be able to like make it till they healed. And gotcha. They do heal. Just take some time. They do heal, yes. But I would just say, I think we're focused on the baby afterwards, and that's feeding the baby and doing, especially if you do breastfeed, it's so time consuming. And so I'm so glad I went in, and I think it's okay to go in before you're 6 weeks. You don't have to wait 6 weeks.
Absolutely. Yes. I mean, we should check on people sooner than 6 weeks, especially after your first baby. Yeah. So I'm glad you went in.
Yeah. And I don't know, for me, I felt like I shouldn't need it because they have the 6 week thing. And so that was kind of in my head. So I needed my mom to be like, no, just go in, just call.
Right. So, right.
Yeah. Gotcha. So the last part I'll kind of hit on is at 5 weeks, my husband came home for his one day and was playing with the baby and told me, did you notice that her left side is bigger than her right side? And I'm like, what are you talking about? Right. I bathe her every single day. I dress her every day. Right. Like I lotion her down. Right. Her left side's not bigger than her right. And he's like, okay. He's like, well, when I was on my pediatric rotation, they said to check the folds of the baby. And if the folds don't match up, then something could be off. And so he left, and that night I was looking, and it's true, her rolls were bigger on her left side. So, of course, instead of like calling my husband, I do a deep dive on the internet, and you're just learning about all of these genetic diseases and these really scary things about what could happen. Right. So I called him, and he said, well, send a message to the pediatrician, and we love our pediatrician. She was just amazing. And so I sent it, and her MA sent back saying, we see you in 3 weeks at the 2 month. I'm sure everything's okay. We'll see you then. Right. Well, those 3 weeks were excruciating, like waiting and just diving in Google. And I wish I would have just said, you know what, this is really causing me a lot of like stress and anxiety.
So can I just come in sooner? Right.
Yeah. And once again, it's like, I don't know why I'm a rule. So I'm like, okay, well, so we went in, and, she went through the whole doctor appointment and was like, she looks great, and was headed out. And we said, can you look at her rolls? They're not, what we messaged about. And she's like, oh yeah. So she came back in, and immediately the whole mood in the room changed. And she was like, has this been here since birth? And we're like, yeah, we looked back at pictures and they were. And at birth, she had like these marks on the left side of her body. It kind of looked like tiger stripes. And then they went away after about like 30 hours. And so we told the pediatrician that was checking her out, and he kind of just dismissed us as like, over concerned. Yeah. And so we told her about that. So she said, I'm going to spend my lunchtime reading, and I'll call you tomorrow. And she called that night, and she was actually in tears, a little emotional, and just said, I'm so sorry. I can't believe I missed this. I can't believe I didn't find this. And so then I was, I am like, well, I appreciate that, and very nervous.
Right.
So she basically said, this could be lymphatic, where a lymph node is something going on and it's causing it to be larger, or it could be genetic. And so I'm going to send you to an ultrasound to look at the lymphatic piece of it. And I'm also going to refer you to OHSU, which is our children's hospital in Oregon,
right,
to do some genetic if it's not. So we went to the ultrasound appointment, and she said it's all clear. And so to go to the genetic appointment. And so we head up to OHSU at 3 months, which was pretty amazing. They got us into everything so quickly. I mean, it was just like, it was such a quick turnaround, which I'm so grateful for.
Yeah.
And we went in, and immediately the geneticist comes in, and my husband's there, and she said, and I had done research that if it's genetic, it would be something called Beckwith-Wiedemann syndrome, which can be pretty severe. Sometimes they have the organs on the outside of their body. Their discrepancy can be huge. It can cause it where the heart is, since on the left side, the heart to be enlarged, the organs to be enlarged. She can have a tongue enlargement, which she'd have to have surgery after surgery.
Right.
Childhood cancers.
Right.
And I know I should have understood this, but I didn't. I thought we still had the chance that it wasn't genetic. I thought maybe it could still be something else. But obviously when the lymphatic came back that it wasn't that, then that put us in that category. But I didn't get that. Okay. And this kind of goes on to the road of my last few years, and I've gotten so much better to speak out. But because my husband's in the medical field, doctors usually talk to him. And I'm in education, and I know there's so many acronyms, and and that's kind of the medical field too. So a lot of times they're talking over my head, and my husband's totally getting it, and I'm not. And in the early appointments, I didn't speak up. I just was like trying to catch up. So the geneticist walks in and says, so it sounds like your daughter has Beckwith-Wiedemann syndrome. And I'm like, my mind is like, what is going on? And so I'm like trying to catch up with everything. And she said, she was talking very clinical, very over my head, very medical.
Right.
And, she lists like, we need an echo, we need blood work, we need ultrasound, all these things. And I'm just like, leave the appointment, like devastated that our daughter has a genetic disorder.
Right.
And trying to like grasp what her life could be like. I'm like so upset by this. And my husband leaves the appointment so relieved. And he's like, he knows so much more than me. And I didn't. He's like, this is a great genetic disease to have one if you're going to have one. He's like, she grows up. He starts saying all these things, which is great. But I was so mad. I'm like, what do you mean? There's no good ones.
Right.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, right.
And so I wanted to share specifically that part of my story because I think for me, I was so focused on the birth and so focused on advocating for myself in the birth and advocating for the birth that I wanted, which I'm so grateful I was. And I wish I would have taken those skills over to the postpartum period, whether it's the hemorrhoids or whether your nipples are so blistered and bleeding from breastfeeding or like this, it was in a moment where everything is so much higher.
Sure.
Than what I knew. I wish I would have had the courage that I did have in my birth to speak up. I transferred to postpartum.
Right.
And I think that part, whether your child has a genetic disease or not, or whether you have there are so many parts of postpartum period that we don't focus on.
Yes.
You did the birth, the baby's here. Good job, Mom.
Yep.
And then you're just left.
Yeah.
And I wish I would have taken that empowerment that I felt from your course and felt from learning into the postpartum. And also with that is doctors know so much, obviously, but there is something about a mother's intuition and just a mother's gut. And I felt that the first time I met my OB. I was like, this is my OB. I feel it. And there were so many times with my baby when she wasn't latching and things weren't going right, or with this genetic disease, or so many things since, where I feel it and doctors are like, well, and so that's the part that I hope people can move to postpartum, because postpartum moms are kind of forgotten about, I feel like.
100%. Thank you so much. This is going to save somebody for sure. I mean, we just, being able to carry that strength and listen to that inner voice is just really, really important. So I'm so glad you shared that. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I'm not someone to share. And so many times I'm like, do I cancel this? Do I dare do it? Because it's just really out of my comfort zone. But I think if I learned so much and I did put it into practice. And if I maybe had heard the story, I would have felt more courageous to, every time I felt that, to be like, no, it's okay.
Yeah.
And I might not have a medical degree, but I do feel this, and we can work together as a team. And I will say all of my providers have been just extraordinary. So it wasn't adversarial. It wasn't anything like that. Yeah, absolutely.
Sure.
They were all just incredible with me and with my baby.
Yeah. Yeah. And how's your baby now? I guess 2 years old now, doing now.
Yeah, she's 2.5, and she doesn't have Beckwith-Wiedemann. She has sporadic isolated hemihypertrophy.
Okay. Which
is all new, but she hits all of her milestones. She does incredible. She's just so sweet and just perfect. So, yeah.
And she has the perfect mom for her too.
Yeah. Oh, well, she's really great. So,
then as we wrap up, then what is your one favorite piece of advice that you would give to someone who's having a baby?
Yeah, I think that goes over the postpartum period that I felt, which is to, in your pregnancy, and practice it now, is to just be kind to yourself and to give yourself that grace. And you're going to feel it. I felt it when I fell, or, you're hard on yourself. And if you think you're hard on yourself before you have kids, you're going to be so much harder on yourself when you have kids.
Yes.
So as much as you practice the breathing for your labor, practice that kindness to yourself, because having that self-compassion is huge, because being a mother, not only does society add so much, but you will add so much pressure on yourself. So that's probably my biggest when I hear someone having a baby, is just be so kind and learn that. It's a skill. It's a skill to learn.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Rachel. I know that I can say that not only I, but everyone who is hearing this conversation will so appreciate you stepping outside of your comfort zone to share your story today. This has been really, really helpful.
Thank you. I really appreciate your time, and just excited to have had this opportunity.
Wasn't that a great episode? I am so grateful that Rachel came on and shared her story. I know we all learned a ton from it. And speaking of which, every time I have a guest on, I do something called Dr. Nicole's Notes, which are my top takeaways from the conversation. Here are my Dr. Nicole's Notes for my conversation with Rachel. Number 1, definitely if you're on medication, it is a great idea to check with your doctor and make sure that it is safe to continue that medication during pregnancy. If there are going to be issues with the medication in pregnancy, it's most often going to cause problems in the first trimester. That's why it's really important for you to know whether or not it's safe to take. And there are a lot of medicines that can be potentially dangerous, like the one that Rachel was taking. And I'm sure that her doctors told her at the time that the medication was not appropriate for pregnancy. We do a really good job. When I say we, I mean the medical community in general. I think we do a really good job with that particular medication of saying, hey, it's really important that you don't get pregnant. But if at the time you start the medication, you're not really thinking about pregnancy, or it's been some time, that's a message that you may have forgotten. So just check in if you're thinking about getting pregnant and make sure it's okay to stay on whatever medication that you're on. Okay, number 2, weight gain in pregnancy. I got a little something to say about this, okay? So really, the reality is that some people, no matter what they do, they're going to gain 40 or 50 pounds in pregnancy. I don't want to discourage anyone, but your body is just going to do what your body's going to do. It can be really difficult to control how much weight you gain in pregnancy. What is more important is that you focus on nourishing yourself with healthy foods, okay? That is the thing that you can control. You can absolutely control what you put into your body. You can meet with a nutritionist. Just do your best to make healthy food choices and nourish your body the best way that you can. Don't stress so much over the number on the scale. Now, if you see the number and you know that you haven't been eating great, then yeah, that's something to be mindful of. But just focus on what you can control, which is what you put into your body. Okay, next is you may not connect with your pregnancy. That's totally normal. Rachel didn't entirely connect with her pregnancy, and I'm so glad she mentioned that. I personally did not enjoy being pregnant. The only thing I enjoyed was the kicks and like feeling the movement and things, but like being pregnant, otherwise I didn't really care for it very much. Obviously, I love my children and I love my babies, but the actual pregnancy part itself was not for me. So there's definitely a both and where you can both not enjoy physically being pregnant and be incredibly grateful that you are pregnant. All right. So it's okay if you don't necessarily connect with or enjoy being pregnant. And then the last thing I want to say is it is totally okay if you choose labor induction, okay? You can totally choose labor induction if you understand the risk, the benefits, the reasons why. In her particular case, her husband had a very short leave. Her cervix was what's called favorable by a Bishop score. So as long as you know what you're getting into, as long as you know that it can be a process, then labor induction is perfectly reasonable choice. Don't let anybody guilt trip you and say, oh, you shouldn't do that. You should wait for things to happen. If you want to do an induction, as long as you are well informed, that is totally within your rights to do so. You can check out episode 183 of the podcast where I talk all about labor induction. That's drnicolerankins.com/episode 183. All right. So there you have it. Do me a solid. Share this podcast with a friend. Sharing is caring. It helps me to reach and serve more people, which is just my heart, soul, and passion of this work. And if you can help me do that, I so appreciate it. So share this podcast with a friend. Also, be sure to subscribe to the podcast wherever you're listening to me right now. Leave a review in Apple Podcasts. That also helps the show to grow, helps me to reach and serve more folks. Do shoot me a DM on Instagram. Let me know what you think about the show. Let me know if you have ideas for the show. I'm on Instagram at Dr. Nicole Rankins. My DMs are wide open. All right, so that's it for this episode. Do come on back next week and remember that you deserve a beautiful pregnancy and birth.